Well, it is June, and the Detroit Tigers are 500 on the season. Let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers, and the Detroit Tigers improve to bring their record back to 500, and we are in the month of June. I know this season has been a roller coaster, okay? And one of the big things that has been out on Twitter lately, actually, X, whatever it's called now, is, 500 teams that are at or around 500 really ride the roller coaster of emotions frequently, right? If you're really bad, you expect to lose. If you're really good, you expect to win. And if you do lose, it's not that big of a deal because you know a win is going to come pretty soon. The middle of the pack is where emotions swing greatly. And so I think it's really important to take a step back here because I admit it all the time. I'm very bad about that. I try really hard to not ride the roller coaster like that, but I struggle with it just like a lot of people do. And I think it's important to take a step back and be like, look, it's June 4th and this team is 500. And if they win tonight, as you're listening to this, they will have a better than 500 record in early June, which I think if you would have told a lot of people, myself included, going into the season, I probably would have taken that. I mean, heck, if you would have told me that going into the season and you would have told me, oh, also you're going to be 500 with Torkelson performing the way he has and with the offense in general performing the way it did for the first 6 weeks of the season, I probably would have even more so taken a 500 record in June. So credit where credit is due to the coaching staff, to the players, etc. for even with the 5-game losing streak and with the struggling of stars. Riley Green had a rough May. Mark Canha, not a star, but is, had a really rough May and was one of your better hitters in April. Torkelson, we already mentioned, et cetera, to still be here and still be playing competitive baseball and to not have let all of those situations just completely derail your season, I think is worth praising. So that is what we are doing here. And they got back to a 500 record with a 2-1 victory over the reigning World Series champion Texas Rangers, who are now 29-31. You actually both went into this game with the exact same record, a game under 500. And now you are 2 games up on the Rangers, who have obviously had a kind of just an inconsistent year. That's still an unbelievably talented roster. I think they'll be fine, but they have really dealt with a lot of inconsistencies. They've had some injuries too. Jace Young's older brother, Josh Young, being one of those big ones as well. And then obviously, DeGrom hasn't pitched in a year, et cetera, et cetera. But, this is still a really good team. And nasty Nate Eovaldi, man, I absolutely love that dude. I am just like enamored when he is on the mound. I am so hooked to the television when Nasty Nate is on the bump. He is such a joy to watch. He's such a competitor. He has such a good fastball, but if you want like pitching 101, right? Like learn really the basics of pitching and sequencing and how pitchers with albeit really good stuff, world-class stuff, attack hitters. Eovaldi is cream of the crop, man. Like I genuinely think this dude is one of the more underrated pitchers of the last 5-6 years. I loved him in Boston. I just absolutely adore this dude on the mound, and he pitched like it. He pitched like he usually does. Coming back from injury, I think this is only his second or third start back. I have him in fantasy too, if you couldn't tell. So I'm very aware of his injury timeline, more so than I usually am, even. But just so good, hitting all of his spots. I know I've had my qualms about the Tigers offense, as we all have this season. But this was a fantastic pitching performance by Eovaldi. 5 2/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 7 strikeouts. Obviously, the 1 run being a solo home run he gave up to Jake Rogers. Leclerc is also a really good pitcher. I know his ERA is a little bit higher this year. Really, really nasty stuff. Hernandez, solid. Like this is still a really talented team. I know we're not doing. I usually start off with what went right on a win. We'll get into that in a second. But I did like this game was so unique, and it's just a 2-1 victory. It's a game that a lot of people are gonna look back and maybe even forget. But this was a really, really fun baseball game to watch, man. Like these were two of the better pitchers in all of the American League, with really good bullpen arms being used as well. Just absolutely bullying hitters. I have the luxury of being like rooting for the team and covering the team that came out on top. So that makes it a lot more fun to talk about, very admittedly. But just the I don't know, as the kids say, the aura of this game, I think was really, really fun. This was just a really awesome baseball game in my eyes. So what went right in this game? Tarik Skubal, Beau Brieske, and Jake Rogers went right in this ball game. I think that's somewhat self-explanatory. It's never just, like 3 people beat the entire team. But like this is about as close as you can get to being able to say that, right? Like this is a starting pitcher who was fantastic, a reliever who was absolutely lights out, and a hitter who was responsible for every single run his team scored and was calling the pitches for the pitchers. Like Jake Rogers had such a great game. We'll get into that in a second. I do want to start with Tarik Skubal. My brain is obviously kind of going all over the place here. This was just really a fun. This was like pure ball, you know. This was just really baseball in its purest form for whatever reason in my eyes. Tarik Skubal is unbelievable. This wasn't even peak Tarik Skubal stuff, and yet his ERA is now 1.97 on the season. 6 innings, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. The 1 earned run obviously was the leadoff homer against Marcus Semien. Before we get into just like the stuff and me just kind of like drooling over how good of a pitcher he is, and then we'll, Jake Rogers and the sequencing and whatnot. Let's go in a time machine really quickly, right? If you are a longtime listener of this show, I appreciate you greatly, for starters. But back in like 2021, okay, really like turning back the clock here, we used to talk about the Skubal inning. If you remember the Skubal inning, you're a real one, all right? This was Tarik Skubal consistently in his young career was electric and was really good. But there was one inning that he would get popped, and he didn't know how to stop the floodgates when they opened. And he's talked about this publicly. I know he talked about it a little bit with Castellani in the preseason on his show. But that was such a big thing for him. He was dominant, and then he would let one base runner become 5, and an inning would just completely get away from him. But then the next inning, when bases were cleared again and everything was starting fresh, he would shove again. And that is completely gone away. This dude's mental makeup and mindset on the mound, I don't think could be in a better place, especially considering, again, what it was early in his career. He gave up the solo homer to start off the ball game and immediately challenged Seager with fastballs inside. Zero fear. That is the ultimate sign of confidence in a pitcher. It's screw you stuff. It's forget you stuff, right? It's, you know what? I know I'm a dog. I know that I am one of the best pitchers in ball. I'm not going to have a 0 ERA all season. Stick with the process. Who's up next? He can get it too. I don't care what just happened. And that is the true makeup that is required to be a Cy Young caliber pitcher, and that is what Tarik Skubal has been this season. We're going to talk about him a little bit more on the other side of this. We'll talk about Jake Rogers' impact in this ballgame on both sides of the ball. We'll talk about Beau Brieske. We'll talk about what went wrong, which is honestly not a whole lot. And we'll talk stuff. Jimmy Leyland getting his number retired. We got plenty more to discuss. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you all today about our friends over at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL season, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Absolutely electric postseason in both of those sports. Brian and I obviously covered the Wings at Locked On Red Wings, and the hockey postseason, the Stanley Cup playoffs, has been phenomenal. McDavid going for number one. Kind of want to keep the Canada streak alive, but there is so much fun action to get in on in championship season over at FanDuel. And with that, you can, if you're a new customer, get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will be back tomorrow recapping Game 2 against the Texas Rangers, talking about anything else that happens in and outside of the Tigers organization. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today for the free 24/7 sports streaming channel over on YouTube. You can subscribe for free on YouTube. It's all of the great news in sports with all of our great hosts here at Locked On. Again, YouTube or for free in the Amazon Fire TV channels app. The Detroit Tigers won 2-1 last night, bringing their record back to 30-30 on the season. Talking about Tarik Skubal a little bit there before the break. Again, this wasn't the best stuff. Something that's been so fascinating about his development is when he first broke into the league, it was very fastball slider oriented. And like the fastball has always been the best pitch and presumably will always be the best pitch. But the slider was kind of like the go-to number two. And he had like the two seam / sinker, whatever you want to call it, pitch in the arsenal as well. But it was really fastball slider oriented. And now it's very fastball changeup oriented. And he's been very open about the fact that he didn't really have a changeup early in his career and tried like the splitter for a little bit. And then, that now has so confident and comfortable with his changeup that I think this has legitimately become one of the better secondary pitches in the American League. Like the Tarik Skubal fastball is obviously going to be one of the best pitches in all of baseball this season. And one of the most efficient and effective and data-wise, it's going to be one of the best. That is the bread and butter. But his changeup is lethal. And I think that's so fascinating because we talk so much about pitches that move left to right. And especially with lefties, if you have a lefty-lefty matchup, you want to go with that slider low and away. And he still did throw his slider, 12 times in this game? But he threw 96 pitches, and 12 of them were the slider. He threw 33 fastballs, four-seam fastballs, 22 sinkers, so variation of a fastball there. You're talking about 55 pitches of the 96 were just variations of the two fastballs he has, and then 25 were changeups. Through 4 knuckle curves, if you want to round out this conversation and talk about the whole repertoire. So of those kind of horizontal moving pitches, only threw 16 of 96 and was still unbelievably effective. Now, I don't think that this was him at his best. Like I said, I think when he's at his best, that slider is working more than it was in this outing specifically. But when you have a guy that has such a good fastball, and with the velocity we're talking about in today's day and age of baseball, a changeup can be, I don't want to say all you need. Again, Tarik Skubal has 4 really good pitches and 5 pitches total in his repertoire. Not what I'm saying at all, not what I'm trying to insinuate whatsoever, but you can be fastball changeup dominant and be a sub-2 ERA pitcher in June. And that is the beauty of Tarik Skubal and his repertoire. It's also the beauty of Jake Rogers and his repertoire. And it's also the beauty of Beau Brieske and his repertoire. I'm just now realizing he's fastball changeup. So really just kind of the theme of the game here. But, Jake Rogers is such a good play caller behind the dish, man. I know we got off to the slow start offensively this season, but these stats actually are going to come via Jerry on Twitter, who is a must follow, X, Twitter, whatever it's called. If you are on X and you want Tigers data and analysis, minor league updates, all of that, at OPSenheimer, great, creative, hilarious by the way. Jerry is seriously a must follow. And he put out after the game, since May 2nd, that's a month sample size. Since May 2nd, Jake Rogers is hitting 302 batting average, 351 OBP, 491 slug. That's an OPS of 842 and a 139 OPS plus, so 39% better than league average, a 140 WRC plus, if you like that better, still around the same, 40% better than league average. That's a 1 month sample size. His numbers on the season, he is now back up to a 674 OPS and a 230 batting average. He's never going to be a high batting average guy, right? If he ends the season hitting 230, that's going to be somewhat fine in my book if the walk numbers are solid and if the power is here. The reason why he was a league average, slightly above league average, whatever he ended up being last year, hitter was because he was a 20 home run hitter, not anything to do with his batting average. He has a big uppercut swing. He's always going to strike out a lot. He's never going to hit for a high average. This last month, again, he's not going to sustain 300, but the power has come along a lot more, and the ball in play numbers have been better. He's been hitting the ball hard and not having such a dramatic uppercut, right? Focusing a little bit more on putting the ball in play. And so, again, he's not going to sustain this level. He's not going to be an 840 OPS hitter for like his entire career. But if this dude can be even a 700 OPS hitter with what he brings behind the dish, I'm thrilled, right? And I know some people get frustrated because of the stance he takes, and he's such a good pitch framer. And you saw it in this ball game. And the umpire had a heck of a day. Okay, I'm not going to run from that. It was an inconsistent at best day at the office for Blue behind the plate here. But Jake Rogers is such a fantastic play caller or pitch caller, but he's such a fantastic framer. And you saw that in this game. But there are few catchers that I trust as much in Tigers history in the last decade, maybe none, than Jake Rogers behind the dish when it comes to calling games. The art of calling a game is so overlooked, and it's hard to qualify, right? There's no like number or analytic that can really drive home the point of how good of a play caller somebody is. Jake Rogers is a fantastic one. Just absolutely fantastic. Knows what's working, knows what's not. And the biggest testament to that is honestly the pitching staff. People don't shake Jake Rogers off very often, right? And that's even the best pitchers and down the line. And that's because he has the trust of that staff. And I think that's as big of a testament to anybody. But just knowing hot zones, knowing what's working for pitchers, knowing the matchups so well for the hitter that's coming up, knowing, if a pitch isn't working, to just like not throw it too terribly often. I can't say enough. I know I have some people that have, one of these days we're going to do a live stream during a game because I want, there's so many things that I like vocalize during a game. I don't have time to break down all, I'd be here for 3 hours if I was breaking down the entire ball game and Jake Rogers behind the plate and whatnot. But I adore him behind the dish. And it's a lot easier to say that and feel like comfortable talking about how much I like him behind the plate when the offense comes around, because that was the huge knock on him, obviously, early this season and early in his major league career. So a great day at the office, obviously 2 home runs on the offensive side of the ball as well. Jake Rogers, fantastic ball game. Okay. Slapped Tarik Skubal too, which made Tarik Skubal laugh mid-outing, which is very hard to do given his competitive nature. So just wanted to point that out as well. All right, let's keep the ball rolling here. Want to talk Beau Brieske, and then we'll talk a little bit Jim Leyland. We'll preview the next game, etc. All right, we'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships and also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home that huge win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in after this Victory Tuesday. Well, you can't really do that in baseball because, they play again on Tuesday. So talked about Skubal, talked about Jake Rogers, Beau Brieske, dog. All right, just absolutely a put it on the table performance, man. Absolutely remarkable stuff. And that moment with AJ Inch, on the mound and shaking him off and going, "I got it. I will finish this ball game." 3 innings, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, and 4 strikeouts. His ERA on the season is now 1.59. Obviously, not the full season. Start out the season in Toledo. Fantastic, man. His fastball since being moved to the bullpen is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. This is a guy who had a fine fastball when he was a starter, but now that he is in the pen, shorter outings, et cetera, you are seeing a whole different level of life on that pitch, and it has made him so much more effective because his best pitch can now actually play off of his fastball consistently, right? His best pitch is his changeup. It has been since he was in Double-A and he came on this show and talked about it. His fastball was fine, but now that you have to respect the fastball even more because it's a much better pitch, it makes his already best pitch even better. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I think in a perfect world, you still want to see him get some sort of a slider, something that moves consistently horizontally, but he is clearly proving, and especially in the bullpen, you don't need quote unquote 3 pitches. But he is proving that he can make this profile work and be really effective out of the bullpen over long stretches. Faced everybody in the lineup at least once. One time through the lineup, boom, 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 mowed the reigning champs down, man. Just absolutely fantastic stuff. I have absolutely loved what I've seen from him. I feel like I said absolutely like 50 times this episode. I have loved what I've seen from Beau Brieske this season, yes, but really just in general since moving to the bullpen. I think this is his future role. But this is why I was really, kind of pounding my fist on the table to get this dude on the roster coming out of spring training. And we're seeing why, again, the slider I still think is kind of a work in progress. And I think that is something he still needs to work on. But he's a darn good pitcher. And when you're talking about highest leverage relievers on the team right now, I'm not saying that this performance you hand over the keys to Beau Brieske and he's just the closer tomorrow. But I'll tell you, AJ's going to remember it. AJ's going to remember this performance. He learned something today. And that was that Beau Brieske can handle this and wants to handle this. And the stuff works in high leverage situations. I really do think that we're going to see Beau Brieske in bigger and bigger situations. And having him be able to go multiple innings, that's a weapon, baby. That's a weapon. So hopefully he can be a injection of electricity and some positivity into a bullpen that has been sliding here over the last couple of weeks. Okay. What went wrong in this game? I don't really have a whole lot. And that's not, again, we scored 2 runs. I don't know, everybody offensively except Jake Rogers, I guess you could kind of say. But again, this was a really, really good pitching performance by the Texas Rangers. Eovaldi was fantastic. Leclerc is really good. Like that's a good team, and that's a really good pitcher that was on the mound for most of this outing. I don't have too many issues with how this. And again, hindsight, maybe some bias just because we won. If we lost 2-1, then maybe I'd have a little bit of a different tune here. But I really am having. I mean, yeah, Javi Baez continues to struggle. Yes, if you don't want him on the team, I understand. Sure, we can just say that every single day, I guess, until something changes. But like I really. I liked the approach. I think they made him work a little bit. He goes less than 6 innings, again, coming off of injury pretty recently. But all in all, this was just exactly how you have to beat teams who have really good pitching performances. You got to do just enough and hold on. And our pitcher did really well, and our reliever did really well, and the offense did just enough. Fantastic. Justin Henry Malloy makes his major league debut 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. The biggest adjustment is going to be velocity. You saw him get bullied by high velocity fastballs a few times in this game. That has been what we've been talking about for weeks on this show, right? The difference between major league and minor league pitching is so different in terms of velo in today's day and age of baseball. So that's going to be his biggest adjustment as far as timing goes. That being said, I almost cried when he swung first pitch. Do you know how awesome that is? This is a guy who got sent down to the minors in spring training and was told by the coaching staff, hey man, we love that you draw walks. That's absolutely awesome, but we got to keep it real with you. We need you to be more aggressive on pitches in the strike zone and do more damage on pitches in the strike zone. This dude had a 20% walk rate in the minor leagues. The first pitch he saw in his major league career, he went hacking. That is baller. That's awesome. I wish it went out more than anything. I don't even care that it was an out. I don't care that it was a fly out. Genuinely, I love it. That is like I am here and I am prepared. I'm not going to look for a walk or whatever you want to say in my first at bat, even though that is my bread and butter. I loved it. I'm getting fired up over a flyout, a 1-pitch routine flyout to center field. But I absolutely loved it, man. And maybe that's just like bias because Malloy is like my favorite prospect, but like genuinely, I absolutely adore. I feel like I've said adore 50 times this episode too. I love that mindset though. Really, I absolutely love that he went hacking there first pitch. Okay. I think that's pretty much it on this ball game. Really awesome. Again, really fun ball game to watch. Awesome that they're back to 500. Hopefully they can build on this. Sometimes you just go up against a really good pitcher. We talked about that a little bit last week as well. And now, my 2 favorite things about Tarik Skubal, when he starts a series and when he ends a series, right? Like it's so awesome to have that in the game 1 of a series because now you have 2 games to just win 1 game. If you split the next 2, you win a series, or you get them in game 3, no matter what happens in the first 2, whether you win 1 or lose 1, you're probably not going to get swept. And if you win one of the first 2, you have a chance to win the series. So this is great. This is great. You have Flaherty today. I don't think the Rangers have actually announced who. Oh, it's Dunning. Okay, they did announce. It's going to be Dane Dunning for the Rangers and Jack Flaherty, who has been on an absolute tear for your Detroit Tigers. Let's go make it a series. Let's go win a series against the reigning champs. Let's get over 500 in the month of June. That'd be awesome. We're going to end the show by talking a little bit about Jimmy Leyland, the skipper. Will officially get his number retired on August 3rd of this season. Awesome moment. Well-deserved. What a year for Skipper, going and getting inducted into the Hall of Fame in the 2024 class, now getting his number retired by the Detroit Tigers. Well-deserved. I know he didn't bring home a World Series here, made it to 2 though, and is one of the most beloved figures and icons in the history of this organization, was really the pillar for turning around those early 2000s and those dreadful 90s, early 2000s teams, right? Like you bring in Pudge, you bring in Jim Leyland, you draft Granderson and Verlander, and you start what would end up being almost 10 years of consistent competitive baseball in this town. And Jim Leyland was a very, very big and important part of that. I cannot say enough good things about Jimmy Leyland. I don't know. Maybe we'll we're gonna have a giveaway. I think somebody made a joke on Twitter that was something like that. The giveaway for that game is going to be a pack of smokes or something. Obviously not going to happen. Obviously a joke, but really, when you talk about managers embodying the city, there are few in my lifetime that have done that. I unfortunately was not around for Sparky. Obviously, he did the same thing with Detroit in the 80s and 90s, but Jim Leyland knew what it meant to the city of Detroit to be a Detroit Tiger. He knew what it meant to be a Detroiter, right? He knew what this fan base wanted to hear. He was very straightforward about it. He was an old school skipper. There's plenty of videos out there of him yelling at players and whatnot. Loved the game, respected the game, loved Detroit, respected Detroit, and knew what it meant to be the manager of the Detroit Tigers, and knew what it meant to manage a good team in this city, right? Something we're seeing with Dan Campbell over with the Lions as well. One of the best to ever do it, in the Hall of Fame, and no one will ever wear the number 10 in the city of Detroit ever again. Beautiful stuff. Okay. I think that's all I got. Flaherty tonight. Let's go get a series win. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. I appreciate you all greatly, and we will be back tomorrow. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.